Hello, everyone. Today is one of my favorite days, starting to get into the strategy and expectations and what are we targeting to accomplish. And we're really going to start to get a taste of that today. And what this is all about is anticipating expectations. So we're going to talk about anticipating today. We're going to talk about understanding. And the key difference is what you think is happening versus what is actually happening. And the key difference on figuring that out is the anticipating is you thinking about it and making judgments, and the understanding is going out and asking and seeking to understand. So there's a little bit of work there, but that work is differentiating and has material impact. And what we want to accomplish over time by anticipation and understanding is closing the gap. Like, how can you become more and more accurate in anticipating the expectations versus always seeking to understand or having to do that less and less and getting more accurate about anticipating what you need to target for. If you're able to do that, it really shows also other people that you understand them without having to ask them again and again and again, which helps to build a relationship, which helps to build your leadership brand. So there's like many things in life and in work, there is a multi-dimensional impact to getting something like this right. So let's go ahead and jump into it. All right, so how can you view someone else's expectations or even your own? It's what you see on the screen. It's that secret story in someone's head, even yours, on how they judge your success. So imagine if you were able to unlock that, how that might change some of the things you would do. So this is anticipating is all about developing understanding that without asking. The next day, we're going to focus on the asking. And I would encourage you to develop this skill and to use it all the time. And it's also something that works for work and our personal lives too. And the way that we help to anticipate and also to understand is through a set of questions that you'll ask in your head for this exercise, and then you'll actually ask the people in the next exercise. And it will enlighten you with a crucial set of data that could be game-changing for you. So the next question is, now that you know, you have to understand the story in their heads, who should you ask? So who should you anticipate? Who should you ask will be tomorrow, but it's the same thing. So who should you be anticipating the expectations about? Imagine you're kind of sitting in the middle of a room, or you're in the middle of a cube, and there's all these things around you that could potentially have a material impact on your success, right? Whether it's directly or indirectly, whether they're opinions of you or you need to rely on them for producing certain kinds of work. Those are the people you should think about anticipating the expectations of. And here are some examples. Might be your manager, could be a skip level manager, could be somebody more senior than that, could be your directs, could be their directs. So going lower down into your team, it could be your peers, people you're working alongside in the same team, and also could be cross-functional. So what teams are you relying on in order to produce outcomes? What other teams that you don't directly report to and their leaders might have expectations that you should anticipate? There's other groups of people to consider, customers and clients. If you're a customer or client facing organization, my hope is that you're aligned to creating value for them. So that ultimately drives the success. And we talked about value at the beginning of the program. Partners, are there people outside of your organization that you rely on to produce work? They're going to be a crucial part. And then not just people, the organization, like thinking about what the organization might anticipate. And here's where I hope like a huge like mind bomb goes off for you on this next thing. Like, whose anticipations should you anticipate? Whose expectations should you anticipate? How about your own? The first 2 weeks when we were talking, and primarily the first week, when we were talking about things like your own motivation and your accessibility, what it ultimately boils down to is the expectations that you set for yourself and you may not even realize, and how when you don't meet those expectations, you don't feel aligned and you don't feel happy. Should you change those expectations? That's a conversation for a different day. But practicing the work in weeks 1 and 2, and more so in week 1, helps you to understand that story in your own head and what you're expecting of yourself. And in my mind, success is chaos, right? So if you're familiar with chaos theory or the butterfly effect, doing one thing can reverberate and have these consequences, and it's dynamic and it's not linear and it feels chaotic, but at the end of the day, it's really not. It's the same thing here. Like all these expectations, aligning to them, touching on them, producing outcomes against them, reverberates as part of your brand, as part of your career. So being very conscious of them and thinking in this way, it can help to bring structure. And how do you bring that structure? Well, through research. If you've done any type of research, if you've done qualitative research, there are things like an interview protocol, set of questions that you use to pull data out from people and things in order to possibly understand the phenomenon a little bit better. And that phenomenon in this case is expectations of yourself, for yourself, and that others have for you that maybe you don't understand yet. So the interview protocol. So the first thing you need to do is just to pick someone. And again, we're not going out and asking them yet. We're kind of playing their role in our head and anticipating the answers. And here's some of the questions to ask. And you can feel free to modify based upon your circumstance. Some have very specific words in them to target specific information that you should be seeking. And like looking at this first question, what do you feel is core to our business? So you're asking this person you picked in your head, and essentially you're trying to understand what they think the business is doing. And many senior leaders are gonna, of course, focus on typical things like revenue and profit, but the opportunity here is really to understand from their perspective, or at least what you think their perspective is. Again, remember anticipation, that is there anything beyond that they see as being core? Because this question helps you to understand what everything is aligning to. Next question. So what are your aspirations for yourself and for your team? In this type of question, we're looking for that big picture thing, that for that person and for their team, what is that vision for themselves and their team that they're striving towards every day, like the story in their head. Like, again, you have the aspiration as well, and you're forming these habits in service of that aspiration, that thing that you want to become. This question helps to find that from another person. And noticing a typo here, so please excuse the typo. Next question, what are the significant gaps you feel are present that are impacting the organization's business, and how did you come to that conclusion? So, and the first question is about like what the goals are, what the aspiration of the business is, what they think that is, and seeking to understand from an alignment standpoint. This question is about understanding what like the big missing pieces are. And we're doing this because we're looking for opportunities, right? This is a potential gold mine of understanding what they think is important and needs to be solved and isn't being solved. And the how question about how they came to that conclusion can help you to judge how valid you think the answer is. And at the end of the day, if you choose one of these things to solve, the potential impact for you could be massive. Next question, what are your needs and challenges or your biggest headache? So again, we are researching for more specific information. This can help you to understand, like, in general, what their like general expectations, maybe not necessarily expectations for you, but this also helps to understand the day-to-day, like those practical things that they have to deal with that are in their way to solving big challenges. And again, if you can alleviate that type of problem that the person is facing, that can go a long way in their measure of success of you, and possibly and being an advocate for you. Next question. So how does someone in my role positively and negatively impact your ability to do your work? Okay, I'm going to pause here. I'm going to come back in just a moment to explain why the words in this question are very important.